The alarm screamed through the monitoring station like a dying animal. Zexthor dropped his cup of hot stimulant, watching the purple liquid splash across his workstation. In 40 years of service to the Galactic Empire, he had never heard that particular alarm before. It was the one that meant something big was coming. Something very big. His 6 eyes focused on the main display screen. Numbers scrolled past faster than he could read them. Energy readings that made no sense. Size estimates that had to be wrong. The computer was telling him that something massive was approaching from deep space. But the readings were impossible. Computer, run diagnostics on all sensors, Zexthor commanded with his gravelly voice. His species, the Vorthans, were known for being careful and methodical. They did not panic easily, but right now Zexthor felt something cold growing in his chest. The computer responded in its calm electronic voice. All sensors functioning within normal parameters. No malfunctions detected. Zexthor stared at the screen. The object was still there, still coming, still impossible. He called up the detailed readings. The thing was enormous, bigger than any ship in the Imperial Navy, bigger than the space stations that orbited the capital world. The energy signature was unlike anything in the Empire's vast database of known technologies. Computer, identify the approaching vessel, he said, hoping for a simple answer. Maybe it was just a new type of cargo hauler from one of the outer colonies. Maybe it was an experimental ship he had not been told about. The computer hummed and clicked as it processed the data. Zexthor waited, drumming his clawed fingers on his desk. Outside the observation window, stars twinkled peacefully in the darkness. Everything looked normal out there, but the sensors were telling a different story. Analysis complete, the computer announced. Energy signature matches human technology patterns. Confidence level, 97.3%. Zexthor's heart stopped beating for a moment. All 3 of them. He read the display again, certain he had misunderstood. Human technology. The computer was claiming this massive ship was built by humans, but that was impossible. Humans were extinct. The Empire had made sure of that 300 years ago. Zexthor had studied the historical records in military academy. The humans had been a primitive species barely capable of leaving their own star system. When they had been discovered, they possessed crude fusion engines and metal ships held together with welds and bolts. Their largest vessels had been tiny things that could barely carry 100 crew members. The Empire had eliminated them quickly and efficiently. Every human world had been destroyed from orbit. Every human ship had been hunted down and vaporized. The species had been removed from the galaxy like a disease. Zexthor pulled up the historical files with shaking hands. The images showed exactly what he remembered. Small ugly ships made of steel and ceramic. Primitive weapons that could barely scratch Imperial armor. The humans had fought bravely, but they had been hopelessly outmatched. Yet now his sensors were detecting something that dwarfed Imperial dreadnoughts. Something that moved through space with impossible grace and power. Something the computer insisted was human in origin. Computer, how certain are you about this identification? Energy patterns match archived human technology signatures with 97.3% accuracy. However, the scale and sophistication exceed all known human capabilities by several orders of magnitude. Zexthor felt sick. He stared at the approaching signature on his screen. It was moving fast now, faster than anything should be able to move through normal space. But it was not using any drive system he recognized. The energy readings were completely alien yet somehow familiar. He opened a communication channel to Imperial Command. His supervisor, Admiral Krextar, appeared on the screen. The Admiral was a massive Thurian with gray skin and small, intelligent eyes. What is it, Zexthor? You look like you have seen a ghost. Sir, I have an unknown contact approaching from deep space. The computer has identified it as human in origin. Admiral Krextar laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Human? Zexthor, have you been drinking fermented fruit juice again? The humans have been extinct for 3 centuries, I know, sir. But the computer is very certain about this identification. The energy patterns match archived human signatures. The Admiral's expression changed. His small eyes grew even smaller. Send me all the data immediately. I will review it myself. Zexthor transmitted the sensor readings and waited. He watched the mysterious ship continue its approach. It was still days away at its current speed, but something about it made him nervous. The way it moved was too smooth, too perfect. Like it was not flying through space, but swimming through it. Admiral Krextar called back within minutes. His face had turned a sickly green color. Zexthor, I want you to double-check everything. Run every diagnostic we have. This cannot be correct. I have already run full diagnostics, sir. All systems are functioning normally. Then run them again, and again after that. Keep running them until you find the error. But there was no error. Hours passed and the readings remained the same. The approaching ship was massive, powerful, and according to every analysis the computer could perform, it was definitely human. Zexthor discovered something else troubling as he dug deeper into the sensor data. The ship was not alone. There were smaller contacts around it moving in formation. At first he had thought they were debris or sensor echoes, but as the main ship drew closer, the smaller contacts became clearer. They were other ships, dozens of them, all showing the same impossible human energy signatures. It was a fleet. Admiral Krextar arrived at the monitoring station in person 6 hours later. He brought with him a team of technicians and specialists. They swarmed over Zexthor's equipment, checking and rechecking every circuit and sensor. They found nothing wrong. "This is impossible," the Admiral muttered, staring at the display. Humans did not have this technology. They could barely build ships that could travel between planets. "Perhaps they found something," suggested Dr. Yilnash, the team's science specialist. "Perhaps they discovered ancient technology. Perhaps they learned from someone else." "Learned from whom?" Admiral Krextar snapped. "We eliminated every species in that region of space. There was nothing there but primitive civilizations and dead worlds. Dead worlds that we made dead," Dr. Yilnash said quietly. An uncomfortable silence filled the room. The truth was something the Empire preferred not to discuss. In their expansion across the galaxy, they had encountered many species. Most had been conquered and absorbed into the Empire. Some had been enslaved. Others had been eliminated entirely. The humans had been eliminated because they had shown too much potential. Their technology was primitive, but they learned quickly. Too quickly. Some Imperial analyst had predicted that given enough time, humans might become dangerous. So the Empire had acted preemptively. Better to remove a potential threat than wait for it to become real. Now, 3 centuries later, something claiming to be human was approaching their space. Something far more advanced than anything the Empire had ever seen. "Sir," Zexthor said quietly. "What do we do?" Admiral Krextar stared at the screen for a long time. The approaching fleet was clearly visible now, a cluster of contacts moving through space with purpose and determination. "We report this to the capital," he said finally, "and we prepare for the possibility that our ancestors made a very serious mistake." Outside the window, the stars continued to twinkle peacefully. But everyone in the monitoring station knew that peace was about to end. Admiral Krextar had never seen the Imperial Command Center in such chaos. Officers rushed back and forth between workstations, their voices raised in urgent conversation. Display screens flickered with data from across the galaxy. The normal calm efficiency of the Empire's military headquarters had been replaced by something much more dangerous. Fear. In the center of it all stood Grand Admiral Vexazon, the Emperor's own brother. His massive form dominated the room as he studied the reports flowing in from the outer territories. His species, the Corvani, were naturally intimidating, with their thick armor-like skin and rows of sharp teeth. But today even he looked worried. "Explain this to me again," Vexazon rumbled, his voice carrying across the room. Slowly this time. Admiral Krextar stepped forward, holding a datapad containing Zexthor's original report. 3 days ago, our monitoring station at grid reference 77 Alpha detected an approaching fleet. Computer analysis identifies the ships as human in origin. Human. Vexazon repeated the word like it tasted bad. "You are telling me that extinct primitives have somehow built ships superior to our own?" "That appears to be the case, sir. The lead vessel alone shows energy readings that exceed our largest dreadnoughts." Grand Admiral Vexazon turned to Intelligence Minister Yilnash, a thin, nervous creature with large eyes and pale skin. "What do our historical records say about human capabilities?" Yilnash consulted his datapad with trembling hands. According to archived files, humans possessed primitive fusion technology and basic spaceflight capabilities at the time of their elimination. Their largest warships were approximately 300 meters in length and carried conventional weapons. And what are we seeing now? The approaching lead vessel appears to be over 15 kilometers long. Its energy output suggests technology we do not understand. Vexazon slammed his fist onto the tactical display, causing several junior officers to jump. This makes no sense. You cannot go from primitive fusion engines to whatever this is in 3 centuries. It took us over 2,000 years to develop our current technology. Perhaps, Yilnash said carefully, our records are incomplete. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what he was suggesting. The Empire kept detailed records of all their military actions. But sometimes those records were edited, especially when the actions were less than honorable. Pull up the complete files on the human elimination campaign, Vexazon ordered. Everything, including classified materials. Data flowed across the screens as archived files were accessed. Most of the records were exactly as expected. Reports of easy victories over primitive human forces. Images of crude ships being destroyed by Imperial weapons. Lists of human worlds bombed into lifeless rocks. But there were gaps. Inconsistencies. Small details that did not quite match. Dr. Kethfor, the Empire's chief historian, noticed them first. Sir, there are discrepancies in the casualty reports. What kind of discrepancies? The official records state that all human populations were eliminated, but several field reports mention evacuation ships that escaped Imperial blockades. Those reports appear to have been classified and removed from the main historical database. Admiral Krextar felt his stomach's drop. How many ships? Unknown. The reports were heavily redacted, but it appears that several hundred human vessels managed to flee into deep space during the final battles. Several hundred ships full of refugees, Vexazon said slowly, fleeing into unexplored space. 300 years ago, the implications hung in the air like a poison cloud. A few hundred ships might contain thousands of humans, maybe tens of thousands. Given 3 centuries to reproduce and develop, there is something else, Dr. Kethfor continued, his voice barely above a whisper. The region where the humans fled. We have ancient records of that area from our early exploration missions. There were ruins there, very old ruins. The survey teams reported finding technology they could not understand before being ordered to abandon the region. Whose technology? Vexon demanded. Unknown. The species was already extinct when our scouts arrived. But the ruins were intact and appeared to contain functional equipment. The survey teams were pulled back because the region was considered too dangerous to explore. The pieces were falling into place, creating a picture that none of them wanted to see. Surviving humans fleeing into a region containing ancient alien technology, 3 centuries of isolation and development, and now they were coming back. Sir, Admiral Krextar said, we need to consider the possibility that these returning humans are significantly more advanced than we anticipated. How much more advanced? Unknown. But if they have had access to alien technology for 300 years, Vexazon turned to the tactical display showing the approaching fleet. The contacts were closer now, moving steadily toward the outer colonies. Their course was direct and purposeful. They were not exploring or scouting. They knew exactly where they were going. What is their current position? Approximately 6 days from the Kepler colonial system, replied a tactical officer. They are maintaining current speed and heading. Have they responded to any communication attempts? Negative, sir. They have not acknowledged any of our transmissions. Vexon studied the display for several minutes. The silence in the command center was complete, except for the quiet humming of computers and life support systems. Deploy the 3rd Fleet to intercept, he finally ordered. Admiral Krextar, you will take command personally. Try to make contact. If they are hostile, you are authorized to use whatever force is necessary. Admiral Krextar saluted. Yes, sir. What if they are too powerful for the 3rd Fleet to handle? Then we will find out what 300 years of evolution has done to humanity. As Admiral Krextar left to prepare his fleet, Grand Admiral Vexazon remained staring at the tactical display. The approaching contacts looked so small on the screen, just tiny dots of light moving through the darkness. But those dots represented ships larger than anything the Empire had ever built. Intelligence Minister Yilnash approached cautiously. Sir, should we inform the Emperor? Not yet, Vexazon replied. Let us see what Admiral Krextar discovers first. No point in alarming His Imperial Majesty with unconfirmed threats, but privately Vexazon was already alarmed. The Empire had spent centuries conquering and destroying other species. They had always been the most advanced, the most powerful, the most capable. Their technology was superior, Their military was unbeatable, and their expansion across the galaxy had been unstoppable. Now, for the first time in living memory, they were facing something they did not understand, something that might be more advanced than they were, something that they had created through their own actions 3 centuries ago. The irony was not lost on him. In trying to prevent humans from becoming a threat, the Empire had driven them to become something far more dangerous than they ever could have been on their own. "Sir," Dr. Kethfor said quietly, "there is one more thing in the historical records." "What?" "The final report from the human elimination campaign." The commanding officer noted that human prisoners repeatedly claimed their species would return someday. They called it the Reckoning. Vexazon felt a chill run down his spine. Just primitive superstition, perhaps. But the officer who wrote that report recommended that the Empire prepare for the possibility of human survivors seeking revenge. His recommendation was ignored and classified. Outside the command center windows, the capital world of the Empire continued its normal daily routine. Millions of beings went about their lives, unaware that their entire civilization might be about to face judgment for crimes committed centuries ago. The approaching fleet continued its steady advance, and with each passing hour, the feeling of impending doom grew stronger. The Imperial Third Fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler colonial system in perfect formation. 57 warships arranged in a defensive pattern, their weapons powered and shields raised. Admiral Krexter stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Victory, watching the scanner displays with growing unease. The human fleet was already there, waiting for them. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "I am reading 12 contacts. The largest vessel is—" He paused, rechecking his instruments. "Sir, the readings must be wrong. It shows as being over 20 kilometers in length." Admiral Krextar moved to the main display screen. The human ships hung in space like sleeping giants. Even at this distance, they were clearly visible to the naked eye. The largest one dominated the view, its hull a strange mixture of curves and angles that seemed to shift and flow in the light of the local star. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. "All frequencies." "Channel open, sir." Admiral Krextar straightened his uniform and activated the transmission. "Unknown vessels, this is Admiral Krextar of the Imperial Third Fleet. You have entered Imperial space without authorization. Identify yourselves immediately and state your intentions." For several long minutes there was no response. The human ships continued to drift silently in space, showing no reaction to the Imperial fleet's presence. Some of the Imperial officers began to whisper among themselves, wondering if the ships were abandoned or if their occupants were even still alive. Then the largest human ship began to move. It turned toward the Imperial fleet with impossible grace, rotating along multiple axes simultaneously. As it moved, patterns of light began to dance across its hull. The lights were beautiful and hypnotic, forming complex designs that seemed to have meaning beyond mere decoration. "Admiral," the communications officer said with a shaky voice, "we are receiving a transmission. Put it on screen." The main display flickered, and suddenly Admiral Krextar found himself looking at a human face. The being was smaller than most Imperial species, with smooth skin and bright eyes. But there was something different about this human compared to the historical records. She seemed to glow with an inner light, and her eyes held depths that spoke of ancient knowledge. "Greetings," the human said. Her voice was calm and clear, carrying easily across the communication channel. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Human Stellar Navy. We have come home." Admiral Krextar felt his heart skip several beats. This was really happening. Humans had returned. After 3 centuries, they were back. "Captain Chen," he managed to say, "I am Admiral Krextar of the Galactic Empire. You are trespassing in Imperial territory. These systems belong to the Empire now." Captain Chen smiled, and that smile was somehow more terrifying than any weapon. "These systems belonged to our colonies before your Empire destroyed them. We are simply reclaiming what was ours. That was 300 years ago. The humans of that time are dead. You have no legal claim to these worlds." "Legal claim?" Captain Chen's expression grew sad. "Admiral, your empire murdered 20 billion humans. You turned our worlds into radioactive waste. You hunted down our evacuation ships and destroyed them in space. And now you speak to us of legal claims?" Admiral Krextar found himself sweating despite the climate control on his bridge. Something about this human woman made him deeply uncomfortable. She spoke of ancient atrocities as if they had happened yesterday. "The past is the past," he said, trying to sound authoritative. "These systems are now home to Imperial citizens. You cannot simply take them back, cannot?" Captain Chen tilted her head slightly. "Perhaps you should reconsider that assessment." Before Admiral Krextar could respond, his tactical officer cried out in alarm. "Admiral, the human ship is powering up some kind of weapon system." On the screen, the massive human vessel began to glow brighter. The patterns of light on its hull intensified, flowing like liquid energy from one end of the ship to the other. The very space around it seemed to ripple and bend. All ships raise shields to maximum. Admiral Krextar ordered. "Prepare to return fire!" "Admiral," Captain Chen said calmly, "that will not be necessary." Before anyone could react, beams of strange energy lanced out from the human ship. But instead of striking the Imperial vessels, the beams passed through them like they were made of empty space. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then every Imperial ship in the fleet went dark. Engine systems shut down, weapon systems powered off, life support systems switched to emergency backup. The entire fleet hung helpless in space, their advanced technology rendered completely useless by weapons they could not even understand. "How?" Admiral Krextar whispered. "We learned much during our time in exile," Captain Chen replied. "We met teachers who showed us that there are forces in the universe far more powerful than weapons and engines. We learned to work with the fundamental forces that hold reality together." "What do you want?" Admiral Krextar asked. He was no longer trying to sound authoritative. Fear had replaced all other emotions. "We want our worlds back. We want justice for our murdered people. We want the Empire to answer for its crimes. The Empire will never surrender these systems. Even if you destroy this fleet, more will come. You cannot fight the entire Empire." Captain Chen's smile returned, but this time it was full of sadness rather than threat. "Admiral, you still do not understand. We are not here to fight the Empire. We are here to end it." The communication channel closed, leaving Admiral Krextar staring at a blank screen. Around him, his crew worked frantically to restore power to their systems, but nothing responded. The human weapon had not damaged their equipment. It had simply made it stop working. Through the observation windows, the human fleet began to move again. The ships flowed through space like living things, their hulls shimmering with colors that had no names. As they passed the Imperial fleet, Admiral Krextar could see details that made his blood run cold. The ships were not built from metal and ceramic like Imperial vessels. They seemed to be grown rather than constructed, with surfaces that pulsed gently like breathing skin. Strange organic structures protruded from their hulls, reaching out into space like the tendrils of some massive sea creature. But most disturbing of all was the sense that the ships were aware. They moved with purpose and intelligence, responding to their environment in ways that no machine should be able to do. They were not just vehicles. They were living beings. As the human fleet moved past, heading toward the inner system, power slowly began to return to the Imperial ships. One by one, systems came back online, but the damage to Imperial confidence was complete. "Admiral," his communications officer said with a trembling voice, "we are receiving reports from throughout the system. Similar human fleets have appeared at 12 other Imperial colonies. All Imperial forces in those systems have been neutralized." Admiral Krextar slumped in his command chair. 12 systems. 12 fleets! The humans had not sent a single ship to reclaim their territory. They had sent an entire navy. "Send a message to Imperial Command," he ordered. "Tell them that the human threat is real and immediate. Tell them that our technology is useless against theirs. Tell them..." He paused, struggling to find the right words. "Tell them that everything has changed." As his fleet limped back toward Imperial space, Admiral Krextar watched the human ships disappear into the distance. They were heading for the planets where Imperial colonists had built new lives on the ashes of human civilization. He wondered what would happen to those colonists. Would the humans show mercy? Would they remember that not all Imperial citizens had been responsible for the ancient genocide? Or would they seek the kind of total vengeance that the Empire had once visited upon them? For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Krextar found himself hoping that his enemies were more merciful than his own people had been. The age of Imperial dominance was ending. The age of human reckoning had begun. The Imperial Palace had stood for 2,000 years, its massive towers reaching toward the stars like the claws of some ancient beast. Today those towers trembled as Emperor Vaxismorian paced back and forth in his throne room. his heavy footsteps echoing through the vast chamber. Reports flooded in from across the Empire. Human fleets had appeared at 47 different star systems. Not just the former human colonies, but imperial worlds throughout the galaxy. Each fleet carried the same message. They had come to reclaim what was theirs and to free the oppressed. "Explain to me," the Emperor rumbled, his voice filling the throne room like distant thunder, "how an extinct species has managed to field more warships than our entire navy." Grand Admiral Vexazon stood before the throne, his usually confident demeanor replaced by obvious anxiety. "Your Imperial Majesty, our intelligence was clearly flawed. The humans were not completely eliminated. Some survived and have spent 3 centuries preparing for this return." 3 centuries to build this fleet? Impossible. No species develops technology that quickly. Intelligence Minister Yilnash stepped forward, carrying a datapad filled with new discoveries. "Majesty, we have uncovered additional information. The humans did not develop this technology alone. They found allies." The Emperor's eyes narrowed to dangerous slits. "What allies?" "Species we thought we had eliminated. The surviving records show that dozens of civilizations fled to the Galactic Rim when the Empire expanded. The humans found them there. They have been working together all this time." The throne room fell silent except for the quiet humming of life support systems. The implications were staggering. The Empire had assumed that the species they had conquered or destroyed were gone forever. But if some had survived and joined with the human, how many species are we talking about? The Emperor asked. "Unknown, Majesty. But initial analysis of the human ship shows technology from at least 15 different civilizations. Some of their vessels appear to use Altarian biotechnology. Others show signs of Zephyrian energy manipulation. The largest ships seem to incorporate Nexus phase-shifting capabilities." Each name sent a chill through the assembled Imperial officials. The Altarians had been master genetic engineers before the Empire destroyed their homeworld. The Zephyrians had possessed energy technology that the Empire had never fully understood. The Nexus had been able to move between dimensions before they mysteriously vanished from known space. All of them had been considered extinct. All of them had apparently survived and taught their secrets to humanity. "Your Majesty," Grand Admiral Vexazon said carefully, "there is something else. The human commander, Captain Chen, has been sending broadcasts to our colonial worlds. She is not simply attacking them. She is liberating them." "Liberating them from what?" "From us, Majesty. She broadcasts the true history of Imperial expansion. She tells the colonists about the species that lived on those worlds before we took them. She shows them evidence of Imperial war crimes, and then she offers them a choice." The Emperor's massive hands gripped the armrests of his throne hard enough to crack the stone. "What kind of choice?" "Join the Human Alliance voluntarily or be freed by force." So far, 17 colonial governments have surrendered without a fight. Their populations have welcomed the human forces as liberators. The Emperor stood up from his throne, his enormous form casting shadows across the chamber. "Send the 1st, 2nd, and 4th fleets to crush these human pretenders. Show them what happens when they challenge the Empire." "Majesty," Admiral Vexazon said hesitantly, "the 3rd Fleet was easily defeated by a single human vessel. Our weapons could not penetrate their defenses. Our ships were disabled without suffering any damage in return. If we send more fleets, then send all the fleets," the Emperor roared. "Send every ship we have. These humans cannot be everywhere at once." But even as he spoke, new reports arrived. Human fleets had appeared at the Empire's 3 main naval bases. Not attacking, but surrounding them. Imperial ships that tried to leave were gently but firmly turned back. It was as if the humans knew exactly where every Imperial asset was located. Dr. Kethvor, the chief historian, approached the throne with obvious reluctance. "Your Majesty, I have been studying the human broadcasts. Captain Chen mentioned something troubling. She said they have been watching us for 3 centuries. "Watching us? How? Unknown, Majesty. But she knows things about our military deployments that should be classified. She knows about secret weapons projects. She even knows about this conversation." As if summoned by his words, every display screen in the throne room flickered to life. The image of Captain Sarah Chen appeared on all of them simultaneously, her calm face looking directly at the Emperor. "Your Imperial Majesty," she said with a slight bow, "I hope you do not mind the interruption. I thought it was time we spoke directly." The Emperor's bodyguards moved to surround the throne, their weapons drawn. But what could they do against an image on a screen?
"How dare you!"
the Emperor snarled. "This is a secure facility. Our communications are encrypted." "Your technology is impressive," Captain Chen agreed. "But we learned from teachers who manipulate the fundamental forces of reality. Your encryption might as well be written in crayon." "What do you want, human?" Captain Chen's expression grew serious. "I want you to understand what you are facing. This is not a war of conquest. This is not about territory or resources. This is about justice for the billions of beings your empire has murdered over the centuries. The Empire brought order to the galaxy. We ended the chaos of competing civilizations." "You ended civilizations," Captain Chen corrected. "You destroyed cultures that had existed for thousands of years. You enslaved entire species. You committed genocide on a scale that defies comprehension." The Emperor laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "And what would you have us do? Apologize? Surrender our rightful territory to primitives and rebels? I would have you face the consequences of your actions. Every species you thought you had destroyed sends its regards. The Altarians remember their poisoned world. The Zephyrians remember their enslaved children. The Nexus remember their scattered people." New images appeared on the screens. Beings from a dozen different species all standing together. Some were recognizable from Imperial historical records as extinct civilizations. Others were completely unknown, perhaps descendants of refugees who had fled Imperial expansion. "We gave them new hope," Captain Chen continued. "We shared our knowledge and they shared theirs. Together, we built something your empire could never create. A true alliance based on cooperation rather than domination." "Impossible. These species were destroyed centuries ago. Some died, yes, but life finds a way to survive even in the darkest times. We found each other in the empty spaces between stars, in the forgotten corners of the galaxy where your empire never bothered to look. We grew strong together." The Emperor turned to his advisors. "How many ships do they have? What are we really facing?" Intelligence Minister Yilnash consulted his datapad with trembling hands. "Based on current observations, at least 3,000 vessels. Possibly many more. They seem to appear and disappear at will." 3,000 ships, the Emperor repeated, "against our fleet of 12,000. We still outnumber them." Captain Chen smiled sadly. "Your Majesty, you still do not understand. We do not need to outnumber you. We do not need to destroy your fleets. We simply need to show your people what you really are." The screens changed again, now showing scenes from across the Empire. Imperial colonists watching human broadcasts that revealed the true history of their worlds. Enslaved species beginning to rise up against their Imperial masters. Imperial soldiers laying down their weapons rather than fight for a cause they no longer believed in. "Your empire is built on lies and fear," Captain Chen said. "Once people learn the truth, once they see that there is an alternative, your power disappears." "We will fight," the Emperor declared. "The Empire will never surrender. You may fight if you choose. But remember this. We learned compassion as well as technology during our exile. We will not become the monsters you were. When this is over, there will be a place in the galaxy for everyone who chooses peace over conquest." The transmission ended, leaving the throne room in stunned silence. For the first time in Imperial history, someone had offered the Empire mercy instead of demanding its destruction. But the Emperor was not interested in mercy. He was interested in maintaining power at any cost. "Prepare the planet killers," he ordered. "If we cannot defeat them in space, we will destroy every world they try to claim." Grand Admiral Vexazon stared at his Emperor in horror. "Majesty, that would mean murdering billions of Imperial citizens. Better to rule over ashes than to lose the Empire to aliens and primitives." As the orders went out to prepare the Empire's most terrible weapons, none of them noticed the small smile that played across Captain Chen's face in the final moments before her transmission ended. The humans had expected this response. They had planned for it and they were ready. Zexthor stood in the Garden of New Haven, watching human children play alongside young beings from a dozen different species. It had been 6 months since the first human ships had appeared in Imperial space, and the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The planet where he now lived had once been called Kepler 7, an Imperial mining colony built on the ruins of a human city. Now it was called by its original name, and the ruins had been restored to their former beauty. Gardens bloomed where strip mines had scarred the landscape. Clean rivers flowed where toxic waste had once poisoned the ground. "It is beautiful, is it not?" Zexthor turned to see Captain Sarah Chen approaching through the garden. She looked exactly the same as she had during that first terrifying encounter. But now he found her presence comforting rather than frightening. "How did you do it?" he asked. "How did you heal a dead world so quickly?" Captain Chen smiled and knelt beside one of the flowering plants. "We learned from teachers who understood that life and death are not opposite forces. They are part of the same cycle. Death feeds life, and life conquers death if you know how to listen to the patterns. The Nexus taught you this?" The Nexus, the Altarians, the Zephyrians, and dozens of others. Each species had pieces of the puzzle. Together, we learned to see the whole picture. Zexthor had heard the stories. During their exile in the Galactic Rim, the surviving humans had encountered the scattered refugees of the Empire's expansion. Species that had been thought extinct. Civilizations that had fled to the empty spaces between stars. Together, they had shared knowledge and resources, building something unprecedented in galactic history, a true cooperative alliance. "What about the Emperor?" Zexthor asked. "The reports say he is still refusing to surrender." Captain Chen's expression grew sad. "He is preparing to use planet-killer weapons. He would rather destroy every world in the Empire than lose his power. Can you stop him?" "We could, but that would require becoming the very thing we oppose. We will not save the galaxy by destroying it ourselves." Zexthor did not understand. "Then how will you end the war?" "By showing people that there is another way." As if summoned by her words, the air above the garden began to shimmer. A massive shape materialized in the sky, blocking out the sun. It was a human ship, but unlike anything Zexthor had seen before. This vessel was clearly alive, its hull pulsing with gentle rhythms as it breathed. Tendrils of energy connected it to the planet below, forming a web of light that covered the entire world. "What is it doing?" Zexthor asked. "Healing," Captain Chen replied. This world was poisoned by Imperial mining operations. The groundwater was contaminated, the soil was stripped of nutrients, and the atmosphere was filled with toxins. It will take years to repair all the damage. Years? But the planet already looks restored. What you see is just the beginning. True healing goes deeper than surface appearances. We are teaching the planet to remember what it was before the damage was done. Other shapes began to appear in the sky as more ships materialized. Each one was different, reflecting the unique contributions of the species that had helped build it. Some ships looked like massive flowers that had bloomed in space. Others resembled crystalline structures that sang with harmonic frequencies. Still others seemed to be made of pure energy, held together by thought alone. "How many species are in your alliance?" Zexthor asked. 147 at last count. More join us every day as they learn that cooperation is stronger than conquest. Zexthor tried to imagine such diversity working together. In the Empire, different species were ranked in a strict hierarchy. The strongest species ruled while the weaker ones served. The idea of equals working together was almost incomprehensible. How do you make decisions? Who is in charge? Everyone is in charge. No one is in charge. We listen to each other and find solutions that work for everyone. That sounds impossibly complicated. Captain Chen laughed, and the sound was like music. It is, but it is also beautiful. When you truly listen to someone, you discover that their perspective shows you things you could never see alone. A new voice joined the conversation. "She speaks truth." Zexthor turned to see a being approaching through the garden. It was tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to be made of living starlight. This was a Nexus, one of the dimensional travelers that the Empire had believed extinct. "Honored traveler," Captain Chen said with a bow. "How goes the great work?" "The final preparations are complete," the Nexus replied. "The network is ready." "What network?" Zexthor asked. Captain Chen gestured toward the sky where the human ships continued to materialize. "We have positioned ships like this one in orbit around every inhabited world in the galaxy. They are all connected through dimensional space, forming a web of consciousness that spans the entire galaxy. Connected how? Through the Nexus dimensional technology, Altarian bioneural networks, and Zephyrian energy matrices. Each ship is both an individual and part of a greater whole. They can share information instantly across any distance. Zexthor felt a chill of fear. "You are building a weapon." "No," the Nexus said gently. "We are building a voice. When the Emperor activates his planet-killer weapons, every being in the galaxy will know. They will see through our eyes, hear through our ears, and understand the truth of what their empire has become. And then they will choose," Captain Chen said. Some will continue to support the Empire despite knowing the truth. Others will reject it and join us. But everyone will make their choice based on full knowledge rather than Imperial propaganda. An alarm began to sound across the colony. Emergency broadcasts flickered to life on communication screens throughout the settlement. The Emperor had made his decision. Planet-killer weapons were being deployed across the galaxy, targeting worlds that had joined the human alliance. Zexthor watched in horror as tactical displays showed the massive weapons moving toward their targets. Each one was capable of cracking a planet in half, turning entire worlds into fields of debris and death. "They are targeting 17 worlds," Captain Chen said sadly. "Billions of lives. Can you stop them?" "We can, but should we? If we destroy the planet killers, we become destroyers ourselves. If we disable them, the Emperor will simply build more." "Then what do you do?" Captain Chen closed her eyes and reached out with her mind. Across the galaxy, every human ship and every allied vessel connected through the vast network they had built. For a moment, every conscious being in the galaxy shared the same perspective. They saw through a million eyes. They felt through a million hearts. They experienced the universe as the humans and their allies experienced it, not as a collection of resources to be exploited, but as a living community to be protected and nurtured. They saw the planet-killer weapons approaching their targets. They felt the fear of the billions who were about to die. They understood with crystal clarity that this was what the Empire really was, a machine that devoured life to feed its own power. And then they saw something else. They saw the human ships moving to intercept the planet killers, not to destroy them, but to absorb them. The living vessels opened like flowers, welcoming the weapons of death into their hearts and transforming them into tools of creation. The energy that would have cracked planets was redirected into healing damaged ecosystems. The matter that would have become debris was reformed into new life. Death became life, destruction became creation, and the Empire's greatest weapons became instruments of restoration. Across the galaxy, Imperial citizens watched in awe as the human alliance accomplished the impossible. They had stopped the planet killers without firing a single shot in anger. They had saved billions of lives while showing mercy to their enemies. Within hours, reports began flooding in from across the Empire. Entire Imperial fleets were surrendering to join the alliance. Colonial governments were declaring independence and requesting protection from human forces. Even on the capital world, massive demonstrations demanded the Emperor's abdication. "It is over," the Nexus said quietly. "The Empire has fallen." But Captain Chen shook her head. "No, the Empire ending is just the beginning. Now we must build something better." "What will you build?" "A galaxy where every species has a voice, where every world is valued for its unique contribution, where cooperation replaces conquest and understanding replaces fear." Zexthor looked around the garden where children from a dozen species played together without conflict. For the first time in his long life, he could imagine such a galaxy. "Will it work?" he asked. Captain Chen smiled and gestured toward the children. "Ask them in 50 years. They will build a better galaxy than we ever could, because they will grow up knowing that diversity is strength and that all life is precious." Above them, the human ships continued their work of healing, connected across the galaxy in a web of consciousness and compassion. The age of empire was ending. The age of cooperation had begun, and in gardens across 1,000 worlds, children of every species played together under alien suns, dreaming of futures their parents could barely imagine.